I actually found myself in Frankfurt, Germany in the early days of March 2020. And I was there because I was actually in the midst of kicking off a proof of concept with a very large airline that happens to be based in Germany, which you can take a guess. And it so happened that it was that Friday, and I remember we had moved to the don't shake hands, but fist bumps are okay phase of COVID. And right, so I wrapped that meeting. San Francisco, in the meantime, where I was living at the time, announced a lockdown, and so I took the first flight I could out of Frankfurt and came back to San Francisco. And as you can imagine, the airline businesses, for them, actually, COVID was an even bigger event than 9/11 had been, according to the many sort of experts I spoke to in the weeks that followed. And so suffice to say that nobody, was interested in doing any sort of a pilot or proof of concept or work with a startup, right? Their concerns had shifted. The levels of urgency were just in very different areas, understandably so. With startups, on the other hand, timing is everything, right? The why now is possibly the most important thing, in addition to later on execution and so on and so forth, that the why now is a very real component. And basically, as soon as I got home, the thing that occurred to me is, wow, like the why now is almost, tricky to predict. And I didn't want to jump on any fads either, right? Because that's kind of the other tempting thing to do. But I really try my best to not get carried away by fads. And so all that goes to say is I told myself, you know what, maybe in a couple of weeks it subsides, and and then you can sort of ignite some of the efforts underway. As we all know, a week and 2 weeks, turn into months and then in years in some cases. But in the meantime, what happened is I got connected to a few amazing folks that had come from PE and healthcare backgrounds to stand up a nonprofit to alleviate the PPE shortage in the US. And because I had, just, been at a company where moving people and things from A to B was such an important piece of, the heart of what we did, I sort of joined forces with them, and we were all volunteers, and it was a labor of love, and we were solely focused on just a singular mission, which is in the United States, there was a real shortage of PPEs. We just didn't have the wherewithal to supply, everyone from medical residents to residents, medical residents to physicians, barbershops, frontline workers, nurses, you name it. And so I actually started building out the digital storefront for this organization. Ended up spending a lot of time actually in the Shopify ecosystem. And so a lot of brands naturally started to come to me because they were like, hey, we heard you can help with this data set problem or this data problem. And I just started to, kind of do pro bono work for them in the context of the work that we were all doing for the nonprofit anyway. So, spent a few months with the nonprofit as a volunteer, but at the same time, just helping out these brands. And it became very clear that there was a new generation in charge became even more clear, and that they were demanding better tools became even more clear. And I started to feel closer and closer to kind of the founder market fit, I think, which is so, so important. So anyway, so that's a bit of a longer version of the story than I've ever shared before, but that's sort of what led to the eventual starting of Crstl.